The Red God takes what is his, lovely girl, and only death may pay for life.
A faceless question. What was a faceless man doing in the darkest prison in King's Landing? When we first meet Jaqen Hagar, he isn't disguised as a traveler or a merchant. He's locked away in the infamous Black Cells, a place reserved for the most dangerous and important prisoners in the realm. Not a petty thief, not a common cutthroat, but a master assassin trained in Braavos. So, why was he there? Who or what was his target? From the Black Cells to the caravan of Night's Watch recruits, Jaqen's presence feels anything but accidental. And when we follow the trail, one name keeps surfacing. A name with means, motive, and the ambition to reshape the game itself. Littlefinger. The Black Cells, prison or cover. The Black Cells of the Red Keep aren't a place you stumble into by accident. Hidden deep beneath King's Landing, 3 levels down into cold stone and darkness, they're reserved for the worst of the worst. Traitors, highborn rivals, or anyone too dangerous to keep anywhere else. Ned Stark was thrown there. Tyrion Lannister too. Even Qyburn carried out his cruel experiments on the prisoners dragged into that abyss. And in the middle of this shadowed gallery of broken men, Jaqen Hagar. But here's the puzzle, he didn't look broken. When Arya first sees him, caged on the way north, Jaqen is calm, well-fed, and strangely untouched by the kind of sickness and madness the Black Cells usually leave behind. He hadn't been there long. That matters, because it means this wasn't some long imprisonment. It was short, deliberate, and very likely part of a larger plan. So we have 2 possibilities. Either Jaqen was captured mid-mission, caught in the act of trying to kill someone in King's Landing, or he wanted to be there. The first option doesn't hold up. Jaqen isn't sloppy, and if an assassination had been foiled inside the Red Keep, we would have heard about it. Someone as skilled as him doesn't simply get caught, which leaves us with the second option, infiltration. Why would a faceless man choose the Black Cells? Because they're the perfect gateway. If you need to vanish into the flow of criminals and deserters destined for the Wall, there's no better way than to start at the bottom, pulled out of the cells with no suspicion, no questions asked. Jaqen wasn't just unlucky, he was embedding himself, and the moment we look at who he might have been trying to get close to, the story starts to sharpen into focus. The caravan north. When the gates of King's Landing opened and Jaqen, the old recruiter of the Night's Watch, hauled out his new batch of prisoners, it looked like the usual parade of wretches, cutthroats, rapists, thieves, and the occasional unfortunate soul who'd chosen the Wall over a noose. Caged among them was Jaqen Hagar, quiet, watchful, almost invisible. But the caravan that trudged north wasn't ordinary. Hidden among the misfits were names that carried the weight of kingdoms. First was Gendry, a secret no one admitted, but everyone who mattered knew. Robert Baratheon's bastard son. Varys had slipped him into the group, hoping to keep him safe from the bloody purge of Robert's children. Then came Arya Stark, snatched from the chaos in the city and disguised as a boy. She was a last-minute addition, a secret even Jaqen couldn't have predicted. And looming above them all was the shadow of the man who never made it, Eddard Stark. The plan, brokered by Varys and Cersei, was for Ned to confess, be pardoned, and take the black. Yoren's caravan hadn't left yet because they were waiting for him. That detail is critical. It means that, when Jaqen maneuvered his way into the Black Cells, the expectation in King's Landing's inner circles was that Ned Stark himself would soon be marching north with that very group. Think about that. A faceless man, a master assassin who can slip into any identity, just happens to be part of a caravan that, on paper, includes a disgraced Lord Paramount of the North, the bastard son of a king, and, by chance, the daughter of another great house. That isn't coincidence. That's setup. If Jaqen had simply wanted to vanish into the Watch, he could have volunteered. But volunteering would have raised suspicion. No one joins the Night's Watch willingly anymore, especially not in the south. By being pulled from the Black Cells, Jaqen gained the perfect alibi. He wasn't traveling north because he wanted to. He was forced a criminal dragged along in chains. The cover was flawless. So the question becomes, who exactly was worth such elaborate preparation? Gendry, Arya, Ned Stark. On the road, Jaqen never lifted a finger against Gendry. He couldn't have anticipated Arya's arrival, which leaves only one logical candidate, the man who was supposed to be there but never made it, Ned Stark. And if Ned was the target, then the real mystery isn't why Jaqen was in the caravan, it's who sent him. Possible targets. At first glance, the caravan looked like a buffet of high-value lives. If Jaqen Hagar had been contracted to kill someone, he had options, but let's test them one by one. Robert's bastard son might seem like a prize. Removing him would have pleased Cersei, maybe even secured her hold on the throne. But here's the problem. Jaqen never shows the slightest interest in Gendry. On the road, in Harrenhal, later when Gendry is vulnerable, Jaqen does nothing. A faceless man doesn't miss his chance. If Gendry were the target, he'd already be a ghost. Arya Stark is different. Jaqen does take an interest in her, trading names for lives and even giving her the iron coin that will shape her destiny. But Arya's presence in the caravan was an accident. Yoren found her last minute, swept her up before anyone else realized who she was. Jaqen couldn't have predicted that. No assassin builds an elaborate infiltration plan around a variable that doesn't exist yet, which leaves us with the obvious figure, Ned Stark. The black cells were his cage before Jaqen's. The caravan was held back specifically to carry him north. Everyone in King's Landing's inner circle expected Ned to confess and take the black. Imagine the value of killing him quietly on the road. No execution spectacle, no public martyrdom, just another northern lord lost to the hardships of the journey. It fits too neatly. Jaqen's timing, his cover, the composition of the caravan, every piece points toward Ned. The Faceless Men play the long game, and what better contract than removing the honorable lord who stood in the way of half the realm's schemes? But if Ned was the target, then the more dangerous question remains. Who wanted him dead badly enough to call on the Faceless Men? Who ordered the kill? If Jaqen Hagar really entered the black cells on purpose, if he really positioned himself for Ned Stark's secret journey north, then the last piece of the puzzle is obvious. Someone hired him. But who? To find the client, we have to follow 4 simple criteria. First, they had to know the plan, that Ned would take the black. This wasn't public gossip. It was a deal quietly arranged by Varys and Cersei, with Yoren's caravan told to wait. Only insiders, or those with very sharp informants, would have known. Second, they needed money. The Faceless Men don't come cheap. Killing a random merchant in Braavos costs a fortune. Killing Ned Stark, even if staged as an accident on the road, would cost more than most lords could scrape together. Third, they had to reach Braavos in time to make the deal. This isn't a service you book by Raven. The price must be negotiated, the target agreed upon. That requires either a network in Essos or direct ties to the city of the Titan. And finally, they had to really want Ned gone. Not just exiled, not just silenced in the frozen wastes of the wall, but dead, erased from the game entirely. When you line up these criteria, the suspect list shrinks to almost nothing. And standing at the center, smirking behind his mockingbird sigil, is Peter Baelish. Knowledge. As a member of the small council, Littlefinger knew exactly what was planned for Ned. He was present when Cersei and Varys discussed the deal. Wealth. As master of coin, he controlled the royal purse. More importantly, Littlefinger had always blurred the line between crown funds and his own. If anyone could quietly funnel gold toward a Braavosi assassin, it was him. Connections. His family hailed from Braavos. He knew the city, its culture, its whispers. On the council, when Daenerys' assassination was debated, Littlefinger was the one who casually dropped the going rate for a faceless man, as if he'd already inquired. Motive. And here, the case becomes overwhelming. Ned was an existential threat. If sent north, he would have told his family how Littlefinger betrayed him in King's Landing. That would have turned the entire Stark host against Baelish, collapsing the ladder of chaos he was climbing. On top of that, Ned stood between Littlefinger and his two unhealthy obsessions, Catelyn and Sansa. As long as Ned lived, so did Littlefinger's obstacle. Look closer at his behavior, and the pattern sharpens. Littlefinger convinces Ned to trust him, then delivers him into Lannister hands. He lies about the dagger used on Bran, framing Tyrion to spark conflict. He even praises the Faceless Men to Ned's face, describing their deadly efficiency, while possibly already having set one on him. That's vintage Baelish, smiling while the knife is already in motion. Even Varys later confides to Tyrion that Littlefinger couldn't allow Ned to live. That was obvious to everyone paying attention. So who ordered the kill? Occam's razor slices clean. The man who always profits from chaos, who had the means, the motive, and the perfect cover. Peter Littlefinger Baelish, the unraveled contract. And then everything changed. The deal for Ned's exile was in place. Yoren's caravan was waiting. Jaqen Hagar was in position. But on the steps of the great sept of Baelor, Joffrey Baratheon shattered it all with a single command. Sir Eilyn, bring me his head. Ned Stark was executed publicly, to the shock of Cersei, to the fury of Varys, and very possibly to the quiet frustration of Littlefinger, who had arranged a cleaner end for his rival. It was chaos, but not the kind Baelish had calculated. For all his careful manipulation, he hadn't accounted for the vanity and sadism of a teenage king desperate to prove his power. The Faceless Men pride themselves on precision, not on wasted contracts. So what happens when the target dies before the blade is drawn? Do they refund the coin, declare the contract void, or simply move on to the next face, the next job, the next death? We'll never know, because their secrecy is absolute. But the fact that Jaqen didn't act against anyone else in the caravan speaks volumes. His work was finished the moment Ned's head fell. Instead, he bided his time. He traveled north as if nothing had happened, lingered at Harrenhal, and when the opportunity arose, slipped away into another identity. For everyone else, it was a mystery. For Jaqen, it was simple. The target was gone. The contract was over. Occam's razor applies again. The story ends not with a dramatic assassination, but with a ghost walking quietly out of the tale. Faceless once more, a ladder of chaos. In the end, the mystery of Jaqen Hagar in the black cells isn't random at all. The Faceless Men don't waste their talents on petty thieves or nameless cutthroats. Jaqen was there because someone wanted him there. The black cells gave him cover, the caravan gave him access, and the target, Ned Stark, made the whole plan worth the risk. Only one man fits the profile of the client, Littlefinger. He had the knowledge, the wealth, the Braavosi ties, and above all, the motive. Ned Stark alive meant Littlefinger's betrayal exposed, his schemes undone, his obsessions with Catelyn and Sansa crushed. Ned Stark dead meant chaos, and Peter Baelish thrives on chaos. It's the kind of hidden move that defines Baelish's career. Hiring the world's most secretive killers, manipulating the fates of great houses, and smiling while everyone else bled. Even if Joffrey's impulsive cruelty stole his victory, it didn't matter in the long run. The end result was the same: Ned Stark gone, the North destabilized, and Littlefinger climbing another rung on his infamous ladder. But here's the haunting part. If Littlefinger really did hire the Faceless Men once, what's to stop him from doing it again? How many deaths in Westeros might have the fingerprints, however invisible, of the Faceless Men behind them? That's the deeper lesson of Jaqen in the Black Cells. He wasn't a coincidence or a curiosity. He was proof that the greatest powers in the realm are not the kings who wear crowns, but the players who pull strings in the shadows. And when those strings are tied to Braavos, the game becomes deadlier still. Jaqen left, Littlefinger climbed higher, and the Game of Thrones rolled on. blood staining every rung of the ladder.